Imagine standing in front of a mirror, not to check your hair or the clothes you're wearing, but to see someone decades older staring back at you. Picture yourself at 80, 90, maybe even 100. What are you able to do? Are you strong enough to carry your own groceries? Can you climb stairs without holding onto the railing? Do you still have the balance to get up off the floor when you fall? Or are you stuck in a chair, alive but diminished, watching life pass by? That vision of the future is not just fantasy. It's the real outcome of the choices you and I make today in middle age, when most of us feel fine and believe we have time. Peter Attia begins Outlive with that haunting vision because he wants us to stop thinking about longevity as simply living longer. Instead, he wants us to ask, what will the quality of those years be? Medicine as we know it, what Attia calls Medicine 2.0, has mastered emergencies. If you suffer a heart attack, doctors can save you. If you crash your bike, they can stitch you back together. But the slow killers, the ones that creep silently over decades, are where Medicine 2.0 fails. Heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's. By the time these are detected, the damage is already deep. We wait until the disease has exploded, Attia explains, and then we scramble. This is why he advocates for Medicine 3.0. It is not about reacting, it is about anticipating. It is about shifting the timeline, thinking in decades, not days. Medicine 3.0 treats the slow burn of aging itself as the central problem. Our health system is built for putting out fires, Attia says. But what we need is a system that prevents them from ever starting. To help us imagine what prevention looks like, Attia introduces the centenarian decathlon. It's not a metaphor for elite athletes. It's a framework for everyone. Imagine yourself at 100 years old. Write down 10 physical tasks you want to be able to do. They might sound ordinary. Carry a suitcase up a flight of stairs, pick up a child, get in and out of a car without help. But they are not ordinary if you can't do them. Once you've defined those events, you work backward. If you want to walk a mile at 90, you need to train for it at 50. If you want to lift a grandchild at 85, you need strength training at 60. Longevity, in this sense, is not luck. It's preparation. It's training for a future you hope to have. And that preparation, Attia argues, rests on 4 pillars: exercise, nutrition, sleep, and emotional health. Each pillar matters. Each is within our influence. And together they make up the foundation of Medicine 3.0. He starts with exercise because, as he puts it, exercise is the most powerful longevity drug we have. It's not a metaphor, he means it literally. Studies show that high levels of cardiorespiratory fitness, measured by VO2 max, cut the risk of death more powerfully than any other intervention. In fact, someone in the top percentile of fitness has a 5-fold lower risk of dying in the next decade compared to someone in the lowest. There is no pill on earth that comes close. And yet, most people treat exercise like an optional hobby rather than a prescription. Attia pushes back against that thinking with an image. Imagine 2 80-year-olds. One has trained consistently for decades. The other has not. The first can rise from the floor, carry groceries, and walk without fear of falling. The second struggles with the simplest tasks dependent on others. The difference isn't chance. It's the compounding effect of daily habits chosen years before. But exercise is not just about running or lifting weights. Attia breaks it into components. First is strength, building and maintaining muscle mass, which he calls the currency of longevity. Muscle is a reserve. When you're sick or injured, the body draws on it. Lose muscle and you lose resilience. Second is stability, the balance that prevents falls, the agility that keeps you moving confidently. Third is aerobic endurance, the ability of your heart and lungs to sustain effort. And fourth is anaerobic power, short bursts of intensity that keep the body sharp. Put together, these form a training plan for the centenarian decathlon. You don't need to become an elite athlete, you need to be functionally fit for the life you want to keep living. Attia shares his own hard-learned lessons. Early in his life, he pushed himself to extremes. He swam oceans, cycled grueling distances, drove his body mercilessly. He believed fitness meant suffering. I thought if I wasn't broken after a workout, it didn't count, he admits. But that mindset nearly destroyed him. Over time, he realized that true longevity fitness is not about extremes. It's about sustainability. Training today not for exhaustion, but for the life you want decades from now. From exercise, he turns to nutrition, the second pillar, and perhaps the most controversial. Nutrition is a minefield of conflicting advice. Vegan versus carnivore, low carb versus high carb, keto versus Mediterranean. Attia doesn't claim one universal truth. Instead, he focuses on the underlying driver of most nutritional harm, metabolic dysfunction. At the heart of metabolic dysfunction is insulin resistance. When your body stops responding well to insulin, blood sugar rises, fat accumulates in the wrong places, inflammation builds. It is a silent fire that burns for years before type 2 diabetes is diagnosed. By then, damage has already touched the heart, the brain, and the blood vessels. So the real goal of nutrition is not weight loss, it's metabolic health. And that looks different for different people. For some, it means low-carb diets that flatten glucose spikes. For others, it means time-restricted eating that reduces constant insulin exposure. For many, it simply means cutting processed sugars, eating whole foods, and avoiding constant snacking. Attia emphasizes experimentation. Track your glucose, watch how your body responds, adjust accordingly. What matters isn't ideology, it's outcomes. I don't care if you're thin, he explains. I care if your metabolism is healthy, because you can be slim and sick or overweight and metabolically resilient. The outside appearance doesn't tell the whole story. He admits his own struggles here too. He has experimented with extreme fasting, obsessive calorie control, rigid dietary rules. He learned the hard way that food is not only about fuel. It is cultural, social, and emotional. To treat food as a clinical variable without respecting its human meaning is to invite failure. The challenge is balance. Eating in a way that protects Healthspan while still allowing joy, connection, and sanity. These first two pillars, exercise and nutrition, form the base of the pyramid. They are the daily practices that build or erode our future. They are the foundation of Medicine 3.0, and yet they are not enough by themselves, because even the fittest, cleanest eater can sabotage their future through neglect of the other two pillars, sleep and emotional health. Attia devotes equal weight to these because without them, the story of longevity is incomplete. Part 1 ends with a vision. Imagine your future self decades from now, standing at the starting line of your own centenarian decathlon. You will not be handed the ability to compete. It will be the direct result of how you trained, how you ate, how you chose to live in the years before. The question is simple but urgent. Are you training for it now, or will you wait until it's too late? If exercise and nutrition form the first two pillars of longevity, then sleep and emotional health make up the hidden foundation that often goes ignored. Peter Attia admits that for much of his life, he treated both as optional, almost trivial. But science and experience taught him otherwise. Sleep, he once believed, was for the weak. In his early medical training, he prided himself on running through days with only a few hours of rest. He thought he was gaining an edge, squeezing more productivity from life. But what he was really doing was accelerating his own decline. I used to brag about how little I slept, he confesses. Now I see it was one of the most destructive choices I made. The evidence is staggering. Chronic sleep deprivation elevates blood sugar, weakens insulin sensitivity, and raises the risk of type 2 diabetes. It inflames the cardiovascular system, setting the stage for heart disease. It sabotages memory and learning, accelerating the brain's path toward dementia. And it weakens the immune system, leaving the body vulnerable to illness. Sleep, in other words, is not downtime. It is active repair. Every night, the body uses sleep to consolidate memory, restore energy, balance hormones, and clear waste products from the brain. Without it, the body ages faster. Sleep, Attia says, is the most potent recovery tool we have. Ignore it, and you pay the price in every system of the body. So how do we reclaim it? Attia offers practical steps. Dim the lights in the evening to cue circadian rhythms. Avoid caffeine in the afternoon. Keep the bedroom cool and dark. Build consistent routines. Treat sleep as sacred, not negotiable. For him, this shift was life-changing. Once he made sleep a priority, his mental clarity sharpened, his physical training improved, and his emotional stability deepened. But even with exercise, nutrition, and sleep dialed in, one pillar remained fragile: emotional health. For years, Attia carried anger, shame, and restlessness like invisible weights. On the surface, he was thriving, high-achieving, disciplined, admired. On the inside, he was unraveling. He admits, "I thought if I just worked harder, trained harder, ate stricter, I could outrun what I was feeling inside. I couldn't." This is where Outlive becomes more than science. It becomes confessional. Attia describes how his emotional blind spots nearly cost him his marriage and left him estranged from the very people he loved. He calls it emotional cholesterol, the invisible buildup that clogs relationships and corrodes peace of mind. Longevity without emotional health, he argues, is a hollow victory. What good is living to 90 if you are consumed by regret, loneliness, or bitterness? Therapy was a turning point. Facing his past, unpacking his patterns, learning to forgive himself. These became as essential as lifting weights or monitoring blood sugar. And he urges us to take this pillar as seriously as any lab test. Emotional health, he insists, is not soft or optional. It is central to a life worth extending. Once the 4 pillars are established, Attia turns to the chronic diseases that cut lives short, the enemies he calls the 4 horsemen: heart disease, cancer, neurodegeneration, and metabolic dysfunction. Heart disease is still the #1 killer, but it almost never appears suddenly. Plaque builds in arteries for decades before the first chest pain or heart attack. Medicine 2.0 waits until the blockage is critical. Medicine 3.0 asks, why wait? Attia advocates for advanced testing, coronary calcium scores, CT angiograms, detailed lipid panels, long before symptoms show. A heart attack should never be the first sign of heart disease, he warns. Prevention means spotting the fire while it's still embers. Cancer, the second horseman, is harder to predict. It can strike quickly even in the healthiest bodies. But here too, vigilance matters. Screening and early detection save lives. Exercise, proper nutrition, and avoiding metabolic dysfunction all reduce risk. The goal is not to eliminate cancer, that's impossible, but to increase the odds of catching it early, while it's still treatable. Then there is neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, the slow, devastating decline of the brain. Attia is blunt. Once symptoms appear, medicine can do little, which means prevention is everything. The strongest defenses are exercise and sleep. Cardiovascular fitness keeps blood flowing to the brain. Deep, restorative sleep clears toxic proteins like beta amyloid. Metabolic dysfunction and inflammation do the opposite, starving and damaging neurons. The time to act against Alzheimer's, he says, is decades before memory loss begins. Finally comes metabolic dysfunction itself, the root system feeding the other horsemen. Insulin resistance, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. These are not just diseases. They are accelerators of every other chronic illness. They inflame arteries, feed cancers, and fog the brain. Left unchecked, they silently shorten both lifespan and healthspan. But with early intervention, dietary changes, consistent exercise, weight management, they can be reversed. Taken together, the 4 horsemen highlight why Medicine 2.0 is inadequate. It waits for catastrophe. Medicine 3.0 prepares for probability. It doesn't guarantee a disease-free life, but it stacks the deck. It shifts the odds toward a longer, healthier, more independent future. And through it all, Attia weaves his personal journey. As a teenager, he survived a shark attack, an early lesson in life's fragility. As a young man, he drove himself with relentless intensity, believing that discipline alone could secure both health and happiness. That pursuit led to achievements, yes, but also to emptiness and brokenness. Only later, through therapy, through rethinking his approach, through embracing humility, did he begin to integrate the pieces. What he came to understand is simple but profound. Longevity is not just about adding years. It's about adding life to those years. It's about building the capacity to show up for your family, your passions, your purpose. It's about preparing now so that decades from now you are not simply alive but fully present. He often asks his patients, and by extension, us, to imagine the moment in the future when we might thank our younger selves. Will you be able to lift your granddaughter? Will you be able to hike with friends? Will you still have the clarity to tell your loved ones that you love them? Those moments are not gifted. They are built. Every choice today is a deposit in that future. Attia closes Outlive with humility. He admits he is still learning, still prone to mistakes, still wrestling with his own demons. He doesn't promise immortality. He doesn't claim perfect answers. What he offers instead is a framework for pillars to strengthen, for horsemen to watch, and a philosophy that values prevention over reaction, preparation over panic. And above all, he offers a new measure of success. Longevity is not about outliving death, it's about outliving regret. About looking back at the choices you made and knowing they gave you the best chance to live fully. He leaves us with an image. Picture yourself decades from now, at a birthday surrounded by family, or alone on a quiet walk. Your body is slower, yes, but you are still capable, still present, still alive in the ways that matter. That moment won't be luck. It will be the compound interest of years of deliberate care. We don't get to choose how many years we have, Attia reminds us, but we do get to choose how we live them. And if we start now, if we train, eat, sleep, and love with intention, we can outlive frailty, outlive despair, and maybe, just maybe, outlive regret.